Picture this. The year is 1119. A small group of 9 knights arrives in Jerusalem with nothing but their swords, their faith, and a mission that would change the course of history forever. They called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. We know them today as the Knights Templar. But here's what's fascinating. Within just 2 centuries, these humble warrior monks had become so powerful, so wealthy, and so influential that they could challenge popes, defy kings, and operate outside the very church that created them. They had become untouchable. Or so they thought. What if I told you that the Vatican's relationship with the Templars wasn't the holy alliance that history books often portray? What if the church that blessed their formation was the same institution that would orchestrate their spectacular downfall? And what if the reason for their destruction wasn't heresy or greed, but something far more dangerous to the papal throne? The answer lies buried beneath centuries of propaganda, papal bulls, and carefully crafted narratives designed to hide an uncomfortable truth. The Knights Templar had grown beyond the Vatican's control, and in medieval Europe, that was a death sentence. You're about to discover how a religious order born from devotion transformed into a financial empire that rivaled nations, how these warrior monks built a network so vast and secretive that even the Pope couldn't penetrate its inner workings. And most importantly, how their independence became their downfall in one of history's most calculated betrayals. Before we dive deeper into this web of power, politics, and papal intrigue, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next in this series. Trust me, the secrets we're about to uncover will change how you see medieval history forever. Now, let's rewind to the beginning. The First Crusade had ended in 1099, with Christian forces capturing Jerusalem. But victory came with a price. The Holy Land was a dangerous place for pilgrims traveling from Europe to visit the sacred sites. Bandits roamed the roads. Muslim forces still controlled vast territories, and the few Christian knights available were spread thin across multiple fronts. Enter Hugh de Payens and his 8 companions. These French nobles approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem with a proposal that seemed almost too good to be true. They would dedicate their lives to protecting Christian pilgrims on the treacherous roads leading to the Holy City. They asked for nothing in return except a place to base their operations. The king granted them quarters in the captured Al-Aqsa Mosque, built on the supposed site of Solomon's Temple, hence their name, the Knights of the Temple. But here's where the story gets interesting. For the first 9 years of their existence, the Templars recruited no new members. 9 knights protecting thousands of pilgrims across hundreds of miles of hostile territory. The math doesn't add up. What were they really doing during those mysterious early years? Some historians believe they were searching for something beneath the Temple Mount. Ancient artifacts, perhaps. Lost treasures from Solomon's era. Or maybe documents that could reshape Christian theology itself. Whatever they found, it changed everything. In 1129, the Templars received official recognition from the Catholic Church at the Council of Troyes. Pope Honorius II didn't just approve their order, he gave them privileges that no religious organization had ever enjoyed. They could build their own churches. They could bury their dead in consecrated ground. They could collect taxes and tithes. Most remarkably, they answered directly to the Pope himself, bypassing all local bishops and church hierarchy. This papal bull essentially made the Templars a church within the church. But that was just the beginning of their rise to power. The real game changer came when they revolutionized medieval banking. You see, traveling with large amounts of gold and silver across bandit-infested roads was essentially suicide. The Templars created a solution that seems obvious now, but was revolutionary then. A pilgrim could deposit money at a Templar house in Europe and receive a coded letter of credit. When they reached the Holy Land, they could present that letter at any Templar facility and withdraw their funds. This system required an unprecedented level of trust, organization, and security. The Templars delivered on all three. Their reputation for honesty became legendary. Their network of fortified houses stretched across Europe and the Middle East. And their military prowess meant that robbing a Templar convoy was essentially a death wish. But the banking system did more than just protect pilgrims' money. It made the Templars incredibly wealthy. They charged fees for their services. They invested deposited funds. They became moneylenders to kings and nobles who needed quick cash for their own crusading adventures. Within decades, the Templars had transformed from 9 poor knights into Europe's first international banking corporation. And this is where the Vatican began to lose control. You have to understand the medieval church's position on money lending. Usury, charging interest on loans, was considered a mortal sin. The church taught that money should not breed money, that profit from lending was theft from God himself. This created a massive problem for European nobles who needed capital for wars, construction projects, and general governance, but couldn't borrow from Christian sources without risking their eternal souls. Enter the Templars with a solution that was technically legal, but practically identical to usury. They would accept deposits and pay the depositor an annual return. They would make loans, but structure them as business partnerships where the borrower shared profits rather than paying interest. They would exchange currencies at rates that included hidden fees. It was usury in everything but name, and everyone knew it. But the Templars had papal protection. Their special status meant local bishops couldn't investigate their finances. Local kings couldn't tax their properties. Even the Pope himself seemed reluctant to look too closely at how his favorite military order was generating such enormous wealth. The Templars had discovered something that would plague institutions for centuries to come. Sometimes the means become more important than the ends, and the protector becomes dependent on the protected. By the late 1100s, the Templars owned vast estates across Europe. They controlled shipping fleets, manufacturing operations, and agricultural lands. Their London headquarters became the de facto treasury of the English crown. Their Paris temple served as the financial heart of France. Kings borrowed money from an organization that was supposed to be serving God, not profit. And here's what made the Vatican's position even more precarious. The Templars weren't just wealthy, they were militarily powerful. These weren't soft monks counting coins in monastery cells. These were battle-hardened warriors who had survived decades of warfare in the Holy Land. They knew secrets, they had connections, they possessed leverage that extended far beyond their official religious duties. The church had created a monster, and that monster was growing stronger every day. But the real crisis was still to come. Because in 1291, everything would change. The fall of Acre, the last major Crusader stronghold, would eliminate the Templars' original purpose and force both them and the Vatican to confront an uncomfortable question. What happens when a religious military order no longer has a war to fight, but still controls enough wealth and power to challenge the very institution that created it? The answer would reshape medieval Europe and reveal just how far the Vatican was willing to go to maintain control over an organization that had grown beyond its reach. The year 1291 marked the beginning of the end for the Crusader states. When the massive stone walls of Acre finally crumbled under the relentless assault of Mamluk forces, more than just a city fell. The entire justification for the Knights Templars' existence collapsed with it. For nearly 2 centuries, these warrior monks had fought in the Holy Land, protecting pilgrims and defending Christian territories. Now, suddenly, there were no more Christian territories to defend. But here's what made this crisis so dangerous for the Vatican. The Templars didn't simply pack up and go home like defeated soldiers. They retreated to their network of fortresses, estates, and financial centers across Europe with their military structure intact, their treasury overflowing, and their independence stronger than ever. They had evolved from religious warriors into something the medieval world had never seen before. A multinational corporation with its own army. Pope Nicholas IV faced an impossible situation. How do you disband an organization that doesn't want to be disbanded? How do you control a military order that has grown more powerful than most kingdoms? The Templars owned entire islands in the Mediterranean. Their fleet rivaled those of maritime powers like Venice and Genoa. Their financial network stretched from Scotland to Cyprus, handling the treasuries of multiple nations simultaneously. Most importantly, they knew where too many bodies were buried, literally and figuratively. You see, the Templars hadn't just been banking for pilgrims and small merchants. They had been financing kings, funding wars, and manipulating currencies for the better part of a century. They knew which nobles were secretly bankrupt. They knew which kingdoms were surviving on borrowed time and borrowed money. They possessed correspondence between rulers that could topple dynasties. Their archives contained enough explosive information to destabilize half of Europe. The Vatican found itself in the unprecedented position of trying to control an organization that could potentially blackmail the entire European nobility. But the Templars' greatest strength was about to become their fatal weakness. Their secrecy, their independence, their air of mystique that had protected them for so long would soon be turned against them. Enter King Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair. By 1307, Philip was drowning in debt. His wars against England and Flanders had emptied the royal treasury. His attempts to tax the French clergy had brought him into direct conflict with Pope Boniface VIII. He had already expelled the Jews from France and seized their assets, debased the currency multiple times, and arrested Italian bankers on trumped-up charges. He needed money desperately, and the Templars represented the largest concentration of liquid wealth in his kingdom. But Philip understood something crucial about medieval politics. You couldn't simply rob a religious order protected by papal privilege. You needed the Pope's permission, and getting that permission required a narrative that would justify the unthinkable. Destroying an organization that had been the Church's most loyal military arm for 2 centuries. This is where the genius of Philip's strategy becomes clear. He didn't attack the Templars' wealth or power directly. Instead, he attacked their reputation through the one accusation that medieval society found absolutely unforgivable: heresy. But not just any heresy. Sexual heresy, blasphemous rituals, devil worship. Perversions so shocking that even whispered accusations would be enough to turn public opinion against the most respected military order in Christendom. Philip's propaganda machine went to work with surgical precision. Stories began circulating about secret Templar initiation ceremonies involving the worship of a demonic head called Baphomet. Witnesses came forward claiming they had seen Templars spitting on crucifixes, denying Christ, and engaging in unspeakable acts with each other. The accusations were perfectly calibrated to exploit medieval fears about secret societies and religious corruption. But here's what makes Philip's campaign so brilliant and so sinister. He didn't need these accusations to be true. He just needed them to be believable enough to give Pope Clement the 5th political cover for what was about to happen. Because Clement V wasn't just any pope. He was a Frenchman who owed his papal throne to Philip's support. He was residing in Avignon, not Rome, essentially making him Philip's prisoner in all but name. The Knights Templar's downfall reveals a timeless truth about power. No organization, no matter how wealthy or influential, can survive when it threatens the very system that created it. The Vatican learned that control isn't just about authority. It's about ensuring that your instruments of power never become more powerful than you are. History has a way of repeating these lessons, and the echoes of this medieval betrayal still resonate in boardrooms and governments today.